What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily Rage Quit, another episode focused on The Last of Us 2. And this one is all about inside the gameplay. Naughty Dog and the tech team came out recently with a breakdown of the game and, more importantly, the mechanics of the game to give all of us a stronger look of what we are expected to get come launch day. Of course, alongside me today, the one, the only, Steelman.
What it do?
Hey guys, we are super stoked. We heard a lot of great things. There's a lot to discuss. Some of the major topics that we're going to be hitting today, of course, one is immersion. The second one is mechanics. Then we're going to dive right into open world. We're going to talk about the upgrade tree and then our final discussion points. Of course, Steelman, let's just dive into the immersion and what we saw in this video today.
Yeah, I love when a developer mentions immersion in the first 10 seconds of a video. Ghost of Tsushima marketing team, take notes on that one. But these guys, it didn't take long. They jumped right in and they started mentioning how important immersion is to Last of Us Part 2. And they are very conscious of this. They want this to be a big part of it. And so do we. I mean, we are both very big on it. It's what makes video games video games. I mean, it's the escape from reality that makes video games what they are for everybody. So it's important. Some of the things they talk about is the ties to emotion, and I love that for this game especially because the storyline does focus a lot on emotion, especially the first one did, and obviously I'm drawing onto the first one on this, but I'm assuming the second one will be as well. And the player needs to feel scared when a big scene happens and there's a lot of enemies, or you get caught off guard by an enemy you didn't know was there. Sad and upset when you lose a character is important. Drained after a long battle. All of these things are important and need to be taken into account when this happens. And it seems like they have to be focusing on that through the next topics that we're going to discuss.
I couldn't agree anymore, man. I think with immersion and the functionality, especially around storytelling. The strongest storytelling comes from how immersed you are within the environment and within the character. And what you could tell with Ellie, just from the couple of screen grabs and what they were talking about, is you could see the distress in her face. You could see the distress in her movement. You could feel when she's attacking and it's meaningful, as opposed to just kind of beep boop beep boop robot attacks. There's there's something there that's different, and the dev team talks about that. They talk about the driver behind it, like you said, is that immersion. And I think when you have something like that with a strong story and the dev team having a major purpose as to what they're building, this is what's going to give you a fucking killer game. But there is no killer game without the mechanics. You cannot have immersion without fucking awesome mechanics. And what you saw from what they talked about today was amazing. And what I envisioned and what I see for myself was fluidity. You can have as much immersion as you want, but you shouldn't just have sad moment, stop. Happy moment, stop. Aggressive moment, stop. This has some sort of advent flow, and for those of you that can't see me on video, I have a little wave going with my arm, in that there is a certain movement of this emotion because of the mechanics that you can feel it. And I feel as though when we get into the actual gameplay, when that game launches, you're gonna, like you said, Steelman, feel when you're tired, and you're gonna see it in the character, and when they're upset, you're gonna see it in the movement, and when they're crawling, and when you're attacking somebody else. I feel like that's gonna be such a clutch moment for the mechanics.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's something that was missing from The Last of Us, the first of the series, and I just recently started playing it again, so I know it pretty well now, and I know praised it a lot in our first video, but going back, it was probably based on memory, but going back, a second time and playing it, I really kind of noticed where it fell short. And, three of those things in particular are jumping, proning, and dodging. All three things that they've added to the part 2 that were not in the first. And I have to say that playing the first one, dodging was a big one. There were times where a guy was right on me, and the only thing you can do is hit him before he hits you. If you don't hit that guy, he's going to hit you, and you're now vulnerable for another attack. And that gets frustrating after a while. I think you should have been able to dodge or block, and there was nothing like that in the game. You can either run or hit the guy first. And that gets took away from some of the immersion in it. I was kind of after a while frustrated, guys running up and hitting you, and you can't do anything about it. Proning and jumping, obviously, they mentioned jumping as part of making Ellie more agile because she lacks Joel's size. They had to make up for that in some other way, and they made her more agile. So now she can jump and raise herself up to some vertical points that Joel might not have been able to. Expands upon her combat. The prone also does that, being able to hide underneath a truck, as they showed in the gameplay trailer. I thought that was kind of cool. But also they mentioned that the enemies have gotten smarter and they'll look under those trucks. So all of these things add to immersion. Again, like every single one of these things are important from that. And, three other topics that I saw too that were cool was that they added her removing an arrow from a corpse. And, she yanked it out, and you could feel the weight behind her having to pull it out. Like, the body, was resistant to her pulling it out. And that was kind of cool because in the first one, if you remember, Joel just kind of waves his hand over an item and he picks it up. And it doesn't matter if it's stuck in a person or if it's on a shelf. He just waves his hand over and he has it. And this was more immersive for sure, that you actually see her pulling the arrow out of a corpse and then putting it in her quiver. I thought that was very neat. Glass breaking mechanic, hopefully that's going to be useful as well as just a added part. She broke a window in this. That was kind of something new. And another thing you spoke about is like how players, how Ellie reacts to certain things. And I see her get shot in the arm in this, and she grabs her arm when she gets shot and then runs away. And there's a bullet hole in her arm and there's blood there. And I saw in one of the trailers she's patching up herself and she's sewing herself back up. And I'll be curious to see when someone heals, if she heals, does she remove a bullet or or patch it back up in that specific spot where she was shot. But like you had mentioned, you see her grimace, you can see her blink. She blinks in certain instances when her character's hiding and you can see her face, and all those things are important. There's all show emotion, and they've done a huge, vast improvement from The Last of Us 1. So it's all good to see. It's all awesome.
Real quick, the dodging was super sick. That one scene where the guy takes a swing and he misses, and then she falls into the car in another dodging moment, and then it almost reminded me of Batman Arkham, just because of like how fluid his movements would be. This has just felt, I like the term you use, gritty. It felt like it had a lot more weight than that, obviously, but that was something so cool. It's like, okay, this could be a lot of fun. I wonder how many. Hopefully, it doesn't come redundant, but I hope it turns into something that looks super sick. The other thing you talked about too that really I loved was the expanding on Ellie's mechanics, and we're not porting old mechanics into the new one. We're building new ones for a character that we're looking at that's smaller, right, than before. We're talking about a character that's more nimble. So they changed the mechanics for the game and expanded on it rather than porting in old ones. I think that gives us a fresh, new feel to a game that's an expansion to a franchise. That is totally sick. And talking about expanding, we also have something that they announced, which was this vast open world to a point where you will play the game and you may miss major sequences. I was like, what? So less linear, more open world.
Yeah, and obviously, we're never going to see Last of Us go to an open world, fully open world, and like we see in Assassin's Creed or one of those games. But we do get that linear vibe when we play the first one. And there are some areas where you can kind of go different paths, but they all lead to the same spot. They funnel in and then they expand out and they funnel back in. But the way he was describing this one, it was definitely more interesting to me, especially what you just said, the fact that you can miss a scripted sequence based on how you play the game. And it kind of gives me that little bit of the Red Dead vibe, too. It's like, if there's something scripted going on in a corner that you don't go to, or if you do go to, like, is there something that's going to make you spend the next 5 minutes trying to survive, like a wolf attacking you or a bear, like in Red Dead? And now the next 5 minutes of the game are dedicated to surviving this thing that you could have avoided, but you didn't. And that gives you a unique perspective. I think that's cool. I think that's really cool because this is a linear game, and we all know it's a linear game, but they've found a way to make it not linear and not redundant, which we've talked about in other videos. Like, redundancy just takes away from immersion. Here it is again, immersion. Like, they've figured out a way to make a linear game more immersive by making it not so linear, and that's awesome. Kudos to them for doing this. There's something that you don't need to do in a linear game. We all expect it to be linear when we go and play it. We're kind of accepting that, and they've actually said, no, we want to freshen this up. So we're going to expand on this and make it a little bit more open, and, great for them. Glad to see that. Cool thing.
I think, taking different paths and getting in there, I think is extraordinarily important. Like you said, the immersion part. And I think also talk about different paths as well. We talk about choices that you can make, and one of the big things that they did talk about in there from a choice perspective was the upgrade tree that they were talking about. Very interesting. It sounds like, to me, it's going to be pretty harsh. You're making a choice and you've got to stick with that. So you need to know, probably before you even pick up the game, what style of gameplay you really are always into and how you want to play that game. I'm sure this game's going to have multiple playovers depending on how you want to upgrade your tree. But for me, what I saw was that it is going to be strict. It's going to be in there. This isn't going to be for the fluffy gamers out there. They're like, I need to go backwards and try and change my tree. Like, they set the bar. And it's like, hey, you're going to play this game. And if you made the wrong choice, you have to deal with the consequences there.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. He came out and said right away that one of the devs said, if you're not going to get enough resources in this game to fill up your tree all the way and go down every branch of the tree. So you need to make your decision and stick with it. I'm a stealth guy. I love playing games stealth. I love ever since Siphon Filter or Splinter Cell Splinter Cell, all those games, man. Like, I used to love doing the stealth route. I don't like being seen. I don't want anyone to see me. If I can go through a whole game without being seen. That's my ideal way of playing, and that's what I do with The Last of Us, the first one. I focus on stealth, so that's for sure going to be my way, stealth and precision. Those are two of the branches they showed for sure, and then the other two I can only guess are going to be crafting and combat based on the images that are there. Combat and fighting. It looked like one was a fist and the other was a crafting symbol. So, and the crafting symbol was part of the first one, so I'd expect that one to be there. Probably in improving upon your speed of crafting and durability of crafting and stuff like that. But those are the four they showed. But if you paid attention in the video, you saw that the way she opened up a branch was picking up the hunting magazine. So there could be a fifth, there could be a sixth branch that you pick up. If you pick them up, during the game, then, who knows how many there are. So they showed four in there, and they showed some, one was the one I'm interested in, stealth. So, but yeah, like it's cool to see that. And it's cool to know that, like, hey, if you go down one and you don't like it, that's tough beans, man. You're going to have to, figure out a way to refocus that or adapt to it. So I like that. I think it makes it a little bit less forgiving and less cushy, like you kind of said too. It's not for the faint of heart. So good for them.
So, guys, as we start getting to the end of this, at the end of this episode, one thing that comes to mind for me, by the way, and I have a big question. Love to hear from you all of what your thoughts are around it. We trust Naughtydog, Steelman, and I to launch a great game. They continuously push the envelope for graphics, for mechanics, and everything in between, especially storytelling. This game's looking to be probably one of the best games to come out for PlayStation for me. What I'm seeing in the last 10 years, right? It's going to be a game-changing game, just like Red Dead was, just like Fortnite was for Battle Royale. This is going to be game-changing and setting the bar. My question for you all is, will they be setting the bar too high for a game? Will people be able to catch up to them? Because if they're setting that bar that high, how do you get to the next level?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because they are setting the bar pretty high here, but I think it's always a good thing. It only makes things better, and the competition only makes things better. As Red Dead set the bar high for open world games, I think that this is a good step forward. We're gonna obviously have a lot of games that are gonna miss the mark now, and that's the way it is, and it'll fall short. But in the end, it's a great thing to see. I'm excited about it. So yeah.
And then, of course, one of the last things we really want to get into from a discussion point, just to make sure, is, Steelman, I know you caught this. Ellie was wearing a mask in one of the particular scenes. So what were you seeing there last time that we saw?
Yeah, so playing The Last of Us 1 right now, one of the things I remember Joel, says when he's talking to his brother, and spoiler alert, if you haven't, haven't played the first one and intend to, he mentions to his brother, I've seen her, she doesn't wear a mask around the spores, and he says, I've seen her take on, breathe in enough spores that would take down a dozen men. And she's fine. And, so that obviously, like, she didn't wear a mask in the first one around the spores when everyone else had to wear a mask. The other part, and she's wearing a mask in the second one. And the other part is that, Ellie, when her friend kind of bails her out under that truck in the first opening scene of this trailer, she asks if she's okay. And, in the first game, you didn't really worry about her getting bitten because she was immune to the virus. So it's kind of wondering, has the virus, not the virus, I think it's bacteria in this, but has the bacteria evolved? Has it changed? Is she no longer immune to it? Can she be harmed by it? Is that why she's wearing a mask? I'd be curious to hear your guys' comments on that, because that is something that could possibly happen, and maybe they've changed the game up a little bit, and now she's no longer immune to it. So interesting to see. I guess that's something we can think about, and you guys can hopefully comment on and let us know what your thoughts are on it.
I gotta say, Naughtydog, great marketing approach once again. Great video to launch off. It gets everybody super stoked for The Last of Us 2. And I got a big ass smile on my face, so I'm ready to rock and roll next month and start ripping through that game. Thank you all very much for joining in on the Daily Rage Quit with Weiss and Steelman. Be sure to subscribe, like, dislike. We need to know if you like our shit or not, of course. And, of course, drop a comment, answer the questions we asked below. We want to hear from you and keep the discussion going. But here from the Daily Rage Quit, we have to say, peace.
Thanks, team.